Welcome all at FORMAAT. Tonight we have a special guest here, the Combatants for Peace, people from Israel and Palestine. We are very honored to have them here. We've been traveling through Holland in the last days with them. And before we start this webinar, and we're very honored at FORMAAT to do this event, just to explain the rules for the people here in the room and the rules for the people at home. When you're watching on the internet, under the screen you can write your questions down, and it's also possible to ask your questions in Hebrew and in Arabic, because we have Rima here who will, if Tamar doesn't understand your question, Rima will look and she can translate the question, so everybody can talk in his mother language. This being said, for the people at home, here in the audience, I want you to say that all the sound in the room is transferred on the internet, so everything we hear, what you say, when you laugh. Of course, we invite also you to ask questions here, and if you have a question, please go to the microphone, because then everybody can hear you on the internet. So if you have questions, and don't be shy tonight, just go to the microphone. There will be special moments when I will propose, please step forward and come to the microphone. So, this all being said, the Combatants for Peace, you were here a week now. Let me introduce you. Rima, Iyad and Yaniv, three members of Combatants for Peace, all three I think from the Tulkarem Tel Aviv part of the movement. What brings you here to Holland? Can I, Rima?
Yep. So yes, we're one group in Combatants for Peace from Tel Aviv Tulkarem, and we're using theater in our activism work against the occupation back home. Dr. Chen Alon, that is our joker facilitator in the group, he developed a technique called the polarized model, which talking about two groups in conflict or polarized, that they're working together. Back home we're working between Israeli and Palestinians groups against the occupation. And we found so similarities with you here in Rotterdam after visiting many places in the last few days that we were here, that you're also having polarized lives inside of the community of Holland. We have this exchange program of learning from each other and from changing experiences, and I must tell you that me, as a member of 8 years in the theater of the oppressed polarized model group, I saw fascinating things of your work in here, because I saw that it's not only about political conflicts, it's also about it could happen also in a social aspect of the conflicts inside of the community. So in our visit here today, this time that we were here, we visited the Muslim community, which was in Holland, and it was so important for me and for Iyad. We met also with the rabbi, Jewish rabbi, with younger people, with young people in Holland, in Rotterdam especially, and it was fascinating to know how to use this technique of the polarized model in here in Holland as well.
It was fascinating also to do this journey with you three. I'm not sure that everybody who is watching and everybody here in the room knows exactly what is Combatants for Peace. So I propose we are going to look at a small video which explains very clearly what Combatants for Peace is and what your goals are. Shall we do that?
Yep.
I'm Chen Alon. As an officer in the Israeli Defense Forces, it was my duty to defend my country. I participated in the military occupation of Palestinian people. I saw that what I was doing in the army was only giving rise to more violence and hate.
My name is Sulaiman Khatib. As a Palestinian fighter, I was part of the armed resistance against the Israeli occupation. I came to understand that my actions only brought more violence. I knew I could no longer take part in it.
We put our fear and mistrust aside and came together to form Combatants for Peace.
We are a binational Israeli-Palestinian movement dedicated to non-violence.
We are the only movement in the world in which combatants in an ongoing conflict have laid down their weapons and are working together for peace. Our goal is to promote an end to the occupation and the creation of a Palestinian state.
To have two peoples living side by side in peace and dignity.
Together, our Israeli and Palestinian members use art, theater, and other creative activities to demonstrate to people on both sides that we can rise above fear and hatred.
That former enemies can become partners in peace, and that together we can create a better future for both peoples.
The media only shows us images of violence and hate, driving us further apart. We engage in activities that embody a different reality. These are the images that bring people together. Your support will help us fund a media campaign and allow us to expand our unique brand of creative activism.
With your support, we can reach a much wider audience. Help us make a statement that our leaders can't ignore.
אנחנו רוצים שהילדים שלנו ושלכם יחיו בשקט וביחד תוך לב לא של נקמה ולא של כעס אלא לב של לסלוח ולאהוב. אין פתרון צבאי לסכסוך שלנו. אם אנחנו לוחמים לשלום יכולים להיות ביחד ולהיאבק ביחד בצורה לא אלימה, כן שאר האנשים יכולים. ומאהבה אנחנו בעד לבוא. תודה לכם.
Please show your support by joining Combatants for Peace and supporting this campaign in any way you can.
Please donate and share this message with everyone you know.
Your voice is critical, now more than ever.
Wow. There is hope. There is hope. There is hope. Take out. We saw Chen and Chen Alon and Suleiman. I don't know his Khatib. Holding this. How to say? Talking about combatants for peace. I know because we've been working since 2013 together that one of the main things you do is sharing your personal stories. I propose that we listen to 2 personal stories because we have 1.5 hours, and I would like Iyad maybe to start off with your story.
أنا اسمي إياد عمري 31 سنة.
My name is Iyad, I'm 31 years old.
بسكن في مخيم للاجئين.
And I live in a refugee camp.
بسكن مخيم للاجئين بسبب أنه أهلي هجروا من أراضي 48.
I live in a refugee camp because my family, they were displaced from their lands in 1948.
طبعا أنا في الانتفاضة الأولى كنت صغير وما كنت أفهم شو فيه.
In the first intifada, I was young and I didn't really understand what's going on around me.
كبرت ووعيت وصرت أفهم أنه في إشي اسمه احتلال إسرائيلي.
I started to grow up into this reality and to understand that there is a Israeli occupation around me.
وطبعا الاحتلال يعني بيمارس كل أعمال العنف ضد الفلسطينيين.
The occupation that is using every violent way against the Palestinians.
فصرت أشعر أنه أنا زي أي فلسطيني واجب علي أنه أعمل إشي وأقاوم الاحتلال.
So I started to understand that and want to be like every Palestinian who must do an action in order to end the occupation.
كوني أنا يعني برضو متربي بعائلة أغلبيتها أقضى سنوات طويلة في السجون.
And also because I was raised in a family that a lot of its member, they were put in the Israeli jails for many years.
وبرضو فقدت ناس برضو من عائلتي.
And because I lost members of my family during wars.
فكنت وأنا في جيل تقريبا 16 سنة صرت أساعد الناس اللي بتقاوم الاحتلال لأنه كان لسه أنا يعني سن صغير.
So in the age of 16, because I was young, so I started only to assist the armed resistance against the Palestinian armed resistance against the occupation.
اعتقلت بسبب هذا العمل لمدة 6 شهور.
And I was arrested because of that for 6 years by the Israelis.
وأنا داخل السجن بالعكس إصراري وتفكيري زاد على أنه أنا لازم أعمل إشي.
Sorry, for 6 months, not 6 years. And during these 6 months in the Israeli jails, I started to get into a deeper understanding and belief that I must continue with this work outside.
ما كنت أنظر أنه هذا عنف أو لا عنف.
I didn't look at the thing that it's violent or non-violent at all.
كانت عندي قناعات راسخة بعقلي أنه أنا بس بدي أقاوم بالاحتلال بأي طريقة.
I had a really strong beliefs that I want to fight against the occupation in any way given to me.
فبعد ما خرجت من السجن صرت أبحث عن أي وسيلة اللي أنا أملك فيها إشي أقاوم الاحتلال.
So when I was released from the Israeli jail, I started to look for ways that I could use and be part of it in order to fight the occupation.
بطريقة أو بأخرى وصلنا لمنظمة حزب الله وتلقينا الأموال منها.
In one way or another, we got into connection with the Hezbollah in Lebanon, and we received money from them.
وبدأنا نعمل في مقاومة الاحتلال.
And we started to work in resisting the occupation.
أنا وعدة أصحاب طبعا مش لحالي.
Me and a group of friends, not alone.
فبعدها خروجي من السجن والعفو ودخلت مقاومة الاحتلال في سنة تقريبا تم اعتقالي للمرة الثانية.
So I was out of jail for 1 year and I joined this group, and after that they arrested me again.
واعتقلوا أصحابي كمان.
And also my friends, they were arrested.
قسم اعتقل وقسم استشهد.
And everyone who wasn't arrested, he was killed.
حكم علي 5 سنوات.
I had 5 years in jail.
وأنا في داخل السجن صارت عدة أحداث.
When I was inside of the Israeli jail, so many things happened outside.
أحداث بتخصني أنا منها اعتقال أخوي.
So many things that happened, like my brother, he was also arrested.
وانحكم عليه 15 سنة.
And he was sent to jail for 15 years.
وما زال لحد هسه في السجن.
And he's still there until this day.
استشهد ابن عمي.
My cousin, he was killed.
فلما صرت أفوت في الأحداث هاي صرت أنه لازم أقعد مع حالي وأفكر شوي.
So receiving all this from the outside, I needed to sit with myself and to think more.
روحت سنة 2007 من السجن.
In 2007 I was released from the jail.
التقيت مع واحد قريب اسمه نور شحادة.
I met one of my big family member. His name is Noor Shhade.
فحدثني كانت أول نشأة مقاتلين من أجل السلام حدثني عنها.
And it was just the start, the beginning of Combatants for Peace, and he told me about the idea.
في البداية أنا كان عندي رفض قطعي أني أصلاً أقعد مع أي إسرائيلي.
In the beginning I had it as a red line for me not to cross it, is not to, I won't ever sit with an Israeli in one table.
فمع المحاولات يعني كنت أنا مش موافق فبدي أروح أتفرج يعني أشوف شو اللي بيعملوه.
But after he tried many times, I said, okay, I will go and just sit to understand what they're doing there.
صرت يعني أعرف وأشوف أنه في هناك إسرائيليين برغبوا في السلام زي ما في فلسطينيين برغبوا في السلام.
During these meetings, I started to see that the same way that Palestinians want peace, also there are Israelis that they're also seeking for peace.
فانضميت بعد فترة يعني من خروجي من السجن لهي المجموعة.
So I joined this group after a few times that I went to the meetings.
وأنا لحد هاللحظة بشتغل مع المجموعة مع المقاتلون من أجل السلام، وأنا الآن منسق مجموعة طور كرم من الجانب الفلسطيني، مجموعة طور كرم تل أبيب.
And I'm still working with the group until this day with a deeper belief. And today I'm the coordinator of the Palestinian group of Tulkarem Tel Aviv from the Palestinian side.
شكرا لكم.
Thank you.
Thank you. If you have any questions on, to add or to ask to Iyad, you will have the possibility in a few moments. But people on the internet, I want to encourage you to write your questions down, and Tamar, my colleague, she will follow on the internet and she will pose the question on behalf of you. Thank you for your story, Iyad. It's very impressive and very deep
كثير مؤثرة وكثير عميقة.
pain you have been going
وجع
through.
أنت عندك هيك جوا.
Yaniv,
يعني
another story. A story from out of a complete other perspective, I think.
قصة من
But
محل ثاني.
can you bring it further?
بس
Can you
ممكن
bring it up?
تحكيها؟
Yep. Hello everybody, I'm Yaniv. I'm 39 years old. I grew up I'm Israeli, live right now in Tel Aviv area, and the coordinator of Tel Aviv, the Israeli coordinator of Tel Aviv Tulkarem group. I grew up in Ofakim, which is a development town in southern Israel. My family, both my parents immigrated to Israel from Tunisia. During the 50s and 60s, their family immigrated separately, and they met in Ofakim. Ofakim, like many other development towns that were established in the periphery of Israel, absorbed the Jewish immigrant from North Africa and from Arab country, and I think until these days they are the majority in these cities. My father, from my childhood, I will tell you a few stories that I remember. My father worked in the Israeli occupation. He worked in Gaza Strip. Since he spoke Arabic, he immigrated when he was 19 years old. He worked there. He was in the civil administration, which was the civil military force that Israel established, which operates until this very day in the West Bank. In Gaza, it's not there anymore after the Israeli withdrawal. I remember that in my childhood I used to go with him to Gaza, and I felt safe. And there were some Palestinian collaborators that worked with him, and I understood that from him that although it seems that they are a friend of us, I should not be confused, because they are our enemy, and we are in a zero-sum game. It's either us or them, and they have their dream to take back their home, in which we live right now. I remember that one day my father came back from Gaza, from his job, and his car was smashed with stone, and later he got from the Israeli security service a plate for the car, Gezen plate. We have different plate for Israeli and for Palestinian in the occupied territory. So I remember when he went to his work, I used to put the plate from Gaza, and when he came back to Ofakim, once again the Israeli plate. So this duality was there. In the age of 12, I left Ofakim, like many other young people in this town, and I studied in a boarding school in Jerusalem. the situation, the education situation in Ofakim until this very day, and the economic situation is not good. The boarding school was in Jerusalem. It was the year 1987, the year of the Intifada. We had day off from the boarding school to go to travel in Jerusalem, and buses started to explode in the city. I remember a fear and a lot of hatred and racism in the street. I also was a fan of Beitar Yerushalayim, a Jerusalem soccer team. I remember the screaming from the crowd, "Dead to the Arab, dead to the Arab." I didn't feel at ease with this screaming, but I was there. In one point, another memory that I have from this moment, in one time that I entered to one of the buses, I noticed that people look at me, and then I realized that I also look like an Arab, because I'm basically Tunisian, from Tunisian descent. So it was also I don't know if important moment, but significant moment that I understood that I look like Arab, and then I sit back in the bus and look for Arab that enter the bus and afraid. So fear was all over. In one of the vacation for the boarding school, summer vacation, I went back to Ofakim. My father organized me to work in a construction. I worked with 9 Palestinians from Gaza in construction in Ofakim, building the new houses for the immigrants from Russia, and it was also a very meaningful experience for me to get to know Palestinians in person. My friends in that day in the work was a guy, his name was Hareb, in Arabic is war, and I asked him why your father gave you such a horrible name, and he told me that he was born in '67, which was a catastrophe to his people, to his nation. 1967 war for me as an Israeli was a good year, a year of victory, of 6-day war. But still I was very right-winger in my opinion, Zionist, and I understood that it's like my father told me, a zero-sum game. It's either us or them. I joined the army like a good Israeli, and I served in tank unit. In my reserve, I also serve as a combatant also in the occupied territory. And I thought in those days that if I'm there, I will not protecting the Palestinians, because I still consider them as my arch enemy, but will not do things that other soldiers might do and maybe prevent them from doing it. I was wrong. It's impossible to be a moral occupier. Nowadays I understand. My biography is a little bit longer because I'm older than Yad. I went to the US to have my graduate studies. My research was about Christian Zionism, Christian Zionists that travel to Israel and support settlers, support right-wing parties, and there is a weird collaboration between Israel and this community in the United States. At the beginning, I fall in love with them because they love Israel passionately. And during the Hezbollah and Israel war, they supported Israel, and they were the only one that didn't criticize Israel activities in Lebanon, in civil area. But during the research, I started asking myself hard question about my Zionism. What is the difference between me and these people, about my Jewish identity. And when I came back to Israel, my first research was about in a Palestinian village, Bilain. It was about the involvement of international tourists in the local struggle in the village. I did it with a student of mine. And it was also quite a transformative moment because during the research, something happened to me. I understood that I could not live anymore in Israel without being an activist. And activism is not my cup of tea. It used to be not my cup of tea. But I understood that I have to do, and there are moments in history that citizens have to do something to change the reality in which they live. And this is how I joined Combatant for Peace 3 years ago. And I truly believe in peace. I believe that what we are doing is for the children of Iyad and the children of Israel, for the future, for the future generation to look back after peace will arrive and the occupation will over. People in the future will be able to look at the past and to know that a group of Palestinians and a group of Israelis decided to abandon violence, abandon the weapon, and work together for a better future. Thank you.
Thank you for your story. ريما.
بس في نقطة بحب أضيفها.
There is something that you would love to add?
Sure.
لا حكى هاي النقطة ما حكى عنها لا ينيف ولا أنا.
That in continuity to what Yaniv said, and he didn't mention it, and something that I didn't mention it myself.
هاي رسالة منا موجهة لكل دول أوروبا وخاصة أمريكا.
And it's a message that we want to deliver to the whole European and to the USA as well.
أنه كل هاي الأموال اللي بتروح دعم لإسرائيل اللي بتبعتوها لإسرائيل هاي كلها أموال بتروح لقتل الأطفال وهدم البيوت وقتل النساء.
That all this money that you're sending to Israel, it all goes to kill these kids and the families and to destroy houses.
فإحنا بنناشد كل الدول الأوروبية وخاصة أمريكا وقف الدعم لإسرائيل.
So we call all the European nations and the USA to stop the support of Israel.
ومقاطعة دولة إسرائيل.
I ask you to stop this right now because boycotting Israel is not something that we agreed upon. And I ask you to continue with this webinar without this.
ريما
Stop translating, please, Rima.
بقدرش اترجم ايش اللي احنا ما اتفقناش عليه.
احنا يعني اللي سامع عربي واللي شايفني وفاهمني لازم انه يفهمني صح انه على امريكا وعلى دول اوروبا كلها مقاطعه دولة اسرائيل.
Don't translate.
ريما.
No,
Yeah, but
listen. We're in the Netherlands. Everybody has the right to give his own opinion.
Yeah, but if
so
I want
there is freedom of speech in this country. I'm very sorry, but please.
And we represent organization.
ريما.
And we agreed upon this point.
ريما.
it should not be, yeah.
ما برضو
Yeah, but I cannot translate something that's not
we will not translate.
ريما.
We that we have.
بس انا بقدرش اترجم ايش اللي انا بديش اياه.
لا
I can't. لا خلاص.
Stop. Thank you. For one moment, I think you were part of the conflict. This was invisible theater. It's one of the tools we use to raise awareness and to let people feel how it is to be in the conflict. But then again, Rima, I visit you in January with 7 other people. And I noticed this was a real discussion inside the movement. It's not something we do here to fool you or whatever, but this is a real discussion in the movement, and we want you to be aware of that. Could you emphasize a little bit on it?
Yeah, sure. In Combatants for Peace, our main goal is not to agree on something. The only thing that we agree on it's to end the occupation in a non-violent ways, and because we are polarized, because we're Israelis and because we're Palestinians, and the Israelis they're mostly Jewish, and the Palestinians Christians and Muslims. Mostly it's Muslim groups. So we have so many different ideas and different point of view of things, like in the normal life also about, for example, women coming in late hours to our meetings. It's also a conflict that the Israelis in the beginning, they said, where is all the women? Why women don't join the meetings? And then they thought that it's not equal, and we got into this understanding of talking about things and to listen and to understand. Boycotting Israel, it's a really major topic that we talk about it, and we until now we have so many different, like every other topic we have different point of views. We're not trying to get in one agreement, and everyone he thinks differently about this issue. I'm happy you gave me the chance to answer this question. I'm also for me, even boycotting Israel, it's a major issue because I'm Palestinian and I live in Israel. I wasn't displaced from the borders of Israel, my family, in 1948, so we stayed in what is Israel today. And boycotting, it's a serious discussion of how to deal with this occupation because we're learning history and we know that this worked in the past, but how it's gonna work now, and we do look for ways and alternatives and to answer that. This, what you saw now, I saw some faces, like scary faces, what's going on? It's a written scene. It's important to say that it's a written scene together with our hosts, the Dutch hosts, that they're also part of this conflict. It's a written scene of arguments that we actually have in the organization, we have in between us. And it was so important for us today also to show maybe to call it the silent voice of the Palestinian, because Palestinians, if the media won't go there in order to deliver the story and the voices and to translate the language into your own language, you won't understand anything, and you won't receive the stories and the messages of the Palestinians in Gaza or in West Bank or in the world. And the Israelis, they're really good with media. So the Israeli government, it's working on that all the time. So maybe what I received today from this scene, that we should, as Palestinians, work more in the international media in order to bring our silent voice. So,
could you also explain, because you have a special position, you're a Palestinian living in Israel, how is that? I mean, it seems to be a quite hard position.
Yeah, when we say Israel-Palestine, we think it's only about borders, it's only about the settlements, it's between two people, but it's actually not. It's you have over 1 million people, Palestinian, living in Israel. We face the discrimination every day. Sometimes we live the day life and we forget about it because we also live in our communities, the Palestinian communities. We don't have a lot of places in Israel that it's mixed cities. We see walls all over of Israel. When you drive, you see all the kibbutz. It's surrounded with walls. You see a lot of villages or cities that you need permission to enter as well if you're not living there. It's really hard sometimes to rent a house if you're Arab in Tel Aviv, for example. So it's a really complex position of being Palestinian in Israel, but it's also, I believe that I'm the only Palestinian Israeli in the organization. And I'm also trying to change the ideas of my community regarding this being part of Palestinian-Israeli action group, to end the occupation, because I think that we have the real power to end this situation, because we know the narrative of both sides, we know how both sides live, and we know the language of both sides. So we will take an action, serious action one day. I started, but we will take a more serious action in order to end this situation.
Thank you, Rima. It's maybe time for some questions. Does anybody in the room feel like posing a question on this moment? Just come in front and don't be shy and on these personal stories and just use the microphone. Yes, come forward, please. I can't see you. Come, Noordin, go to the microphone. Because the people on the internet will not hear you.
Je vais parler arabe. Elle va me traduire.
Okay, he wants to speak Arab and ask you. But speak in the mic. Turn the mic towards yourself because otherwise people won't hear you.
مرحبا بكم في بلدكم الثاني هولندا.
Welcome to your second home, Holland.
Yes. عياد لياد أن ينيف. كيف تقبل الناس فكرة عملكم لا للقتال نعم للحوار؟
Yaniv, it's a question to Yaniv and to Iyad as well. How people accept your new ideology of no fighting and yes to dialogue. No to war, no to fight, and yes to dialogue.
Iyad, you want to start? Or yeah, go.
طبعا مش في السهولة أنه الناس تتقبل الوضع هذا أنه من انتفاضة ومن قتل ومن هدم بيوت لأني أقعد مع إسرائيلي وأتحاور معه.
It wasn't easy at all to the people in my community to understand that from coming through the intifada and the killing into sitting together with the Israelis.
وهي إحدى الصعوبات أو التحديات اللي إحنا بنواجهها.
And this is one of the challenges that we're actually having in our community, in our work.
لكن إحنا بنوصل رسالتنا وفكرتنا عن طريق عملنا على الأرض وإنجازاتنا على الأرض.
But we deliver our vision of this through the actual work on the ground, the active work.
الإنجازات اللي بننجزها في مقاتلون من أجل السلام في المقاومة السلمية هي اللي بنقنع فيها الناس في المقاومة السلمية.
The achievements that we're having during the last years in the Palestinian territories, it convinced the people, the Palestinian people, that this is the way of non-violent in order, and it's succeeding, and it will end the occupation.
في هناك نتائج إيجابية، صح هي مش سريعة، بس لكن إحنا شو ما تكون النتيجة إيجابية إحنا بنكون يعني مبسوطين.
We have positive achievements and we succeed. It doesn't happen at the moment, at the it doesn't happen quickly, but it takes time, but it happens in the end.
Thank you. Yaniv, the question was also posed to you. What about that from an Israeli perspective?
I cannot answer for the entire society in Israel. I can answer for myself. For me, ending the occupation must be taken without violence. Violence is a cycle, in my perspective. You cannot do violence and get another fruit. Only violence. And it's a cycle. And I decided to take the role of the one that dropped the weapon. Drop the weapon and working with my so-called enemy to tell our leaders that we want a solution. I understand nowadays that the freedom of the Palestinian people is also the freedom of my people. Israel needs to end the occupation, first of all, for itself, to free its citizens, to free its young people from doing this job in the occupied territories. So for me it's very easy why violence is not the solution for the situation.
And how do your parents, for example, which you told in your personal story now, and they're still living in Israel, how do they react to your transformation?
It's very difficult. My parents live very close to Gaza Strip. In the last war, they were constantly bombarded with missiles from Gaza. In the past 7 years, I should say. So for them, all my transformation into being a leftist and activist is not easy, but they respect me. They wish that someday I will wake up and understand that I made a very big mistake and I'm very naive but they, I think, respect my decision. They watch me, they follow me. I know. Sometimes I notice that my mother look at the website of Combatants for Peace and tell me, I saw you in that Arab village.
Maybe she's watching. You don't know. You don't know. Thank you. Are there any other? Une question pour Rima. En arabe aussi?
Oui, en arabe.
Yeah.
المسرح أبو الفنون.
In the mic. In the mic.
المسرح أبو الفنون.
Theater, it's a father of art.
هل ترين أن المسرح أو العمل المسرحي سلاح جميل لخلق الأمان والسلام؟
If I think that theater, it's a safe technique and a successful one in order to get to peace.
This brings us to the polarized model.
Yeah. سؤال جميل بس بنفع أرد بالإنجليزي. Yeah, so I will answer in English. The thing that I do believe and I agree that theater, it's or art, it's a common language that everyone could understand it. Today, for example, we had a workshop here in FORMAAT with the Holland Dutch people, and they used their own language. I facilitated the workshop with Tamar, and they felt more freely to talk in Dutch, but I didn't understand a word. But I did understand the body, I did understand the movements, I understand what they're trying to say without even understanding the language. And also when we see pain in the eyes of a Palestinian woman, or we see pain in the eyes of a Israeli mother, we see the pain of the two mothers, and you could read it and you could understand it without even knowing what happened to her. And theater is actually doing this. What we're doing through theater in the polarized model, that we're bringing first of all, we share stories, deep stories. Sometimes a story could take days in order to tell it when we have long workshops. The story and working together with theater in order to work on your story, it could bring the story of the other side. Because if you were a soldier and you stopped a Palestinian from passing the borders, the checkpoint, in order to get medicine treatment, health treatment in Israel. So now we have the opportunity through personal stories and through theater in order to embody the Palestinian story because every Palestinian, he was refused to pass through the checkpoints to Israel. So we have the stories of both sides, that both of them are antagonist and protagonist at the same time. And we show these plays, theater shows, to people. And once it's theater, first of all, the law of theater, that you're an audience and you need to be patient and to listen and to observe and to really look at things, even if you don't agree with it. Because it's theater, then people will continue looking, will continue hearing, and they will think during the show. The shows, you will see more about it. I don't want to talk about it, but it's in the open spaces. It's not indoors. It's not the orthodox theater. And we ask people to give alternatives. We ask people to come and to change one of the characters in the play and to give alternative to the problem of the Israeli and of the Palestinian at the same time.
Are there any questions from the internet? Not yet. Okay.
Shukran.
Shukran. Yeah, thank you. Then let's continue. But please, at home, write your questions down here. Consider the question you want to pose, and just go to the microphone so we know. I want to go to a next chapter of this webinar, which leads us to, because theater it's one thing. In the movement, theater has a prominent place, especially in Tulkarem, Tel Aviv. But there is more. There is more. When we visited Combatants for Peace, and we got a tour from Adi, one of your tour guides. She took us with us around the Bethlehem area, and we heard for the first time a terminology like E2. And E2 is a project, is one of the major projects, I think, from Combatants for Peace at the moment. Shall we first watch the video on the action on the ground, so the public will know the context of settlements and what is exactly happening in that area? Yes? Okay, we go for a small movie.
Good morning to the settlers of Efrat. We are here, Israelis, Palestinians, citizens of the world, to remind you that this is a Palestinian land. That you're trying to take it over is against the Israeli interest. We declare this land a Palestinian land. Stop trying to ruin the chance for peace in this area. We will not give up.
הכפר נחלה שוכן מצפון להתנחלות אפרת באזור גוש עציון.
We are now between Bethlehem. Bethlehem is over there. The Efrat settlement is over there. And this is the south of the West Bank. And the houses of Efrat is the village of Qaryat El Nakhle. This is private Palestinian land. Over here we have land that the settlers are trying to take over. Some of it, a small part of it they bought. Now they're trying to take over all the land around to create a second settlement of Efrat. To double the settlement of Efrat, to block Bethlehem from the south, to disconnect the south of the West Bank from the center of the West Bank. This is very dangerous for the two-state solution. What the settlers are trying to do is to connect these dots and to connect it to Tkoa in Herodion over there. This is Herodion mountain. So to connect it to East Gush Etzion and to create a very, very big settlement. So we came today to announce that this is a Palestinian land, that the attempts to break the negotiations and to poison our future will not succeed.
הרעיון הוא שאנחנו בונים,
We didn't do the whole thing because the rest would be in Hebrew, but I think it gives a good impression on one of the actions on the ground. Yaniv, could you explain a little bit the context of what we just saw?
Yeah, campaign E2 started in one of our groups, Bethlehem, Jerusalem. We operate in 5 regional groups. One of the members there, Hillel Berdin and Udi Gur, started leading this project after they heard about a new settlement that is going to start in the area of Bethlehem. For the settlers, or the way the state of Israel presented, was extension of another settlement, Efrat. But in fact, what we found out, that this extension is actually building a brand new settlement. The way this settlement operates, or the way the states and the army operates in this case, resemble other cases in the West Bank. First, the state of Israel declared this land as a state land. Okay. Second, they establish an agricultural farm, which is not officially settlement. And only later on they bring water, the army that guard this very few farmer, and all, of course, on the expense of Palestinian villagers in the village of Nakhla that the land was taken for them. What we are doing in this campaign we start collaborating with other peace organizations. First, we have a petition to the international community and to Israeli, and we found out that in this case, we will not be able, I mean the Israeli leftists and the Palestinian, we will be able to stop this settlement by ourselves, so we call for the help of the international community. So this, our collaboration, Format Theater and Combatants for Peace, is something that I see more and more in our organization and in other peace organizations. We need the help of the international community, and we are going to, and we use it in this campaign.
Another action I know, and another specific huge problem I saw, and I smelled it, is near the neighborhood from to Karem, where we suddenly were confronted when we got out of the car with a huge, intensive smell, and the Palestinians explained us there were factories there producing chemical products, and what they told us was when the wind is in favor of Israel and is blowing over the Palestinian land, they will release their chemical toxic products, which goes over the city of Tulkarem and the whole neighborhood. And my question is for Iyad, we saw this and we smelled it, and what is exactly the impact on the surrounding villages of these, I think it's 7 factories? 13 factories built on Palestinian land. But what is that meaning for the environment, for the population around it?
طبعا في البداية يعني للعلم أنه هاي مصانع كانت داخل أراضي إسرائيل، قسم من هاي المصانع كانت داخل أراضي إسرائيل مش في الأراضي الفلسطينية.
If we go back a little bit, it's important to say that these factories, most of these factories, it was built on before on Israelis' lands.
بسبب أنه هاي المصانع غير قانونية وتأثيراتها على الناس من ناحية صحية تأثيرات كبيرة جدا، في قرار من المحكمة بإزالتها من أراضي إسرائيل.
And because these factories, they really harm the people are surrounded, they surround the factories, so by a court decision, the Israelis asked them to close the factories and to remove them.
فتم مصادرة أراضي من أراضي مدينة تولكرم.
So they displaced lands, they took lands from Tulkarem area, the Palestinian land.
ونقل المصانع من داخل إسرائيل إلى أراضي تولكرم.
And they just moved these factories from Israeli sides into a Palestinian side.
للعلم مدينة تولكرم من ناحية إحصائيات وزارة الصحة هي أعلى نسبة في مرض السرطان.
By the health ministry of Palestine, Tulkarem it has the highest average percentage of cancer among the population.
تأثيراتها واضحة على الناس على أرض الواقع من ناحية أمراض السرطان لأنها هي مصانع كيماوية.
And the direct impact on these people after these years that you see a lot of cancer and a lot of health problem of the people that they live in Tulkarem.
طبعا يعني مع العلم يعني أغلبية العاملين فيها هم عمال فلسطينيين.
And it must to add that most of the workers that they work in these factories, they are actually Palestinians.
طبعا زي ما ذكر لوك انه هاي المصانع لما بدهم يطلعوا الدخان الكيماوي لما تكون الرياح باتجاه اسرائيل ما بيطلعوها، لما تكون باتجاه مدينة تولكرم بيطلعوها، وهذا الاشي هو شاهده وشافه بعينه.
And as you mentioned before that about releasing the dust of the chemical the chemical factories, they really wait until the wind in their favor, and that's why everything every time comes only to the Palestinian side. And you saw this with your own eyes.
Yes.
وإن شاء الله احنا يعني مقاتلون من أجل السلام، في عنا خطة عمل ضد هذه المصانع، وإن شاء الله بنباشر فيها بداية الشهر القادم.
نباشر فيها ولا
يعني
بلشنا؟
بنبدأ فيها بداية يعني الفعاليات على أرض الواقع رح نبدأ فيها في 1/5.
And that this is one of our new goals in Combatants for Peace as a group of Palestinian and Israelis, and it's one, and we have already working plan, and we will start doing that next month.
وإن شاء الله راح تكون فعالياتنا على أرض الواقع، ومن ناحية تانية من ناحية قانونية عن طريق المحاكم، على أساس أنه زي ما أطلعوا قرار بإزالتها من إسرائيل لأنها مضرة صحيا، فلازم يطلع قرار بإزالتها من أراضي طول كرم.
It's gonna be in two major aspects of the legal aspect of asking to remove these factories the way they did before from Israel, and the second one is just to raise the knowledge about it and to stop all these actions against the Palestinians.
بتوقع ضررها واضح كونها مدينة طول كرم أعلى مدينة نسبة أعلى نسبة في المدن من ناحية مرض السرطان.
And the only proof that we have at the moment, and it's so obvious, it's the high percentage of cancer in Tul Karim.
هاي بشكل مختصر جدا عن مصانع قشور.
This is in a very short about the factories, and also not to share too much because we have the intelligence. We don't want them to stop us.
I heard that the Belgians are making a research program, and they're gonna come up with the results in 3 years. So there is some urgentness in this, I think. Yaniv, I know for you especially is a very important point of attention inside the movement. What do you do inside of Israel with it?
What we, in one of our tours to Tul Karim to study this area, because actually the Palestinians raised our attention to this industrial zone. And it's called the Baths of Peace. Very ironic, very cynical name. Kind of economic collaboration between Israel and Palestine. In fact, it's a colonial capitalism. The Palestinian workers are exploited there. they are not paying the minimum salary like in Israel because it's behind the green line, so the employee can violate the Israeli law or not obey the Israeli law. They can pollute the airs, the rivers, the air, because once again the Israeli law of environment does not exist behind the green line. And of course they took the land from Tul Karim, but they don't pay the taxes, the factories, to the municipality of Tul Karim. From all these reasons, when we came back to learn about this place from close, Noor, our friend in Tul Karim, host us. And when I was there, I found out that I recognized one of the trucks that come out and in from this industrial zone, because we are not allowed to enter. It's like a working camp. It's closed and with soldiers and with guns around it. And it was a recycling company that operates in my own city, recycling company of paper. And I was surprised, you know. It's I live nearby Tel Aviv in a quite leftist area. Everyone used this recycling bin, and I know, and I wonder if how many people in Israel know that they are using product from this industrial zone. And we decided to
thinking they do something good with saving their paper and
taking the garbage to the neighbor.
Yes.
And we decided to mark this ban with a barcode sticker that people can scan and learn about the occupation. So for us, for the Israeli side, for the Palestinians is of course their life, their lived experience. They suffer from this industrial zone. For us, in the Israeli side of Combatants for Peace, we see this industrial zone as a monster example that epitomize or represent so many problems of the occupations. Because our problem in the Israeli society, many of us don't know about the occupation. Some Israeli even will not agree that it exists anymore. and this industrial zone and the campaign in E2 in Nachle all represent for us example for the Israeli to educate the Israeli about the costs of the occupation, the moral cost and the economic cost, the health cost for our neighbors and for the environment.
I think it's time for another round of questions. Is there something in from the internet?
Yes, I have. There's a question or comment from Italy. Maura, she says, don't you think the BDS discussion is too much influenced or occupied from the outsides? Too much academic? Which alternatives can we find?
Could you say it again, please?
Don't you think the discussion is too much influenced from the outsides and too much academic? Yes. Are there alternatives? And then Gen is commenting, and I think this has a link.
You just need to translate this.
Yeah.
واحدة إيطالية عم تسأل هل أنتم بتفكروا إنه نقاشكم هو كثير معلوماتي؟
Do it loud because there's Arabs in the public as well.
But I don't do it.
Okay.
وهل في وسيلة أخرى إنه أنتم تعملوا يعني لو
Sure, it's about I think the question is about the BDS was initiated by the international community, and she asked, or maybe she wants to see
She's not
more.
asking about the BDS.
More. It's question about BDS, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah.
And she's asking why it is not more a Palestinian thing or Israeli thing, or something that coming from the local communities, from the people. This is the question. Rima, you want to answer this question?
I want because I really didn't.
Look it up.
And I really didn't understand what she's asking. I'm sorry.
Sorry. The discussion is
she
on
didn't say
boycotts.
BDS.
Say the word BDS, they know it.
So
it's about BDS.
Yeah,
and
we
I'm not so into it.
Of course, we know the BDS.
I didn't hear
BDS
that.
it's a movement, boycott, disinvestment, and sanction.
Yeah.
That call the international community. This was exactly what we talked about. The international community to boycott and to withdraw their investment in Israel until the end of the occupation.
Yeah.
And this lady is asking if we don't think that it's too international or too academic. You know, it's international because it's the issue of the international community. Of course, for the Palestinian, it's very difficult to boycott Israel. They actually use Israeli money, okay, and sometimes they use Israeli product. They use Israeli electricity. So the BDS, for me, it's natural that it came from the international community. You cannot. Of course, many Palestinians support this campaign. Very few Israeli support it. In Israel, much more popular to speak about boycotting products from the West Bank, from Nitzanei Shalom, from this industrial zone, and not from the entire states of Israel.
And are there alternatives?
If there are, I guess so. There is. If our
هي عم تسأل إذا في هي عم تسأل إذا في بدائل لحتى نعمل المقاطعة.
Yes. Yes, Yaniv. So, you understood it.
He wants to.
No, I just wanted to translate because it was too fast. بدك تجاوب. Sorry.
بدائل للمقاطعة. إذا بده يكون هناك مقاطعة في بدائل، البدائل مش عن كل إشي موجود. يعني إحنا كشعب فلسطيني الكهرباء من إسرائيل، المي من إسرائيل، العملة إسرائيلية. أما في أمور بقدر يعني الواحد أنه يقاطعها في إلها بديل فلسطيني.
So I agree with Yaniv on what he said, and yes, we use the electricity from Israel, we use the money of Israel, we also get return of the tax, our tax from the Israelis.
So first it's collected by the Israelis and then they give it to the Palestinian authorities.
Yeah. Okay. So we are really under the system of the Israelis all the time.
فالمقاطعات اللي هي بتتم حاليا في الشارع الفلسطيني هي مبادرات من قبل مجموعات شبابية.
But still, the Palestinians are trying to affect the economy of Israel and to get to another dimension of understanding, of boycotting not the basics like money or electricity, but to boycott things in the day-to-day life.
فهي مقاطعة على مستوى السلع الموجودة في الأسواق الفلسطينية اللي هي السلع الإسرائيلية الموجودة في الأسواق الفلسطينية وإلها بديل فلسطيني.
Right now it's about boycotting the Israeli products that you have an alternative for it in the Palestinian market. So like if milk, you have also Palestinian milk. So the Palestinian street at the moment, and not the government, the Palestinian street calling for Palestinians to buy the Palestinian product as a start.
هاي المقاطعات القائمة في الوقت الحالي.
So this is the alternative of the boycotting in general.
I would like to add to this. Political consumerism is important way to act for European. But there are other alternatives. First, you can come to visit. Okay, to visit Palestine and to visit Israel and to support the Palestinian cause. Second, you can put pressure on your own government, not to be indifferent, and to let the European government that ending the Israeli occupation in the West Bank and the liberation of the Palestinian people is also interest of Israelis, as opposed to the opinion of some of our leaders or to the opinion of my Prime Minister. Some Israelis don't agree with the government, and pressure from people. Political consumerism, what I try to say, is only one way, and of course there are other ways to.
Any questions from here? Somebody wants to pose a question? You're so silent.
May I use the platform to say another thing? Me, as Combatants for Peace, I do go to the yearly meeting of the BDS, because for me it's important also to, like the internationals, you get the conclusions of the committee that working on the BDS in Palestine. But it's important for me to go every year to these meetings and to be part of this, not because I support everything 100%, but because I want to come as someone who's working with the Israelis in order to bring the voice to inside of this movement. So it's also important to know that, because every year I sit with the group that working and talking about how the BDS looks at the art in Palestine and the art in Israel. If the Palestinians want to go, and yes, I raise my voice, and yes, I speak about our movement, and because it's very important for me.
Talking about big manifestations, Memorial Day is one of the key elements in the movement. And to give you an impression on this happening, because it's really a happening, a big, huge happening. We have another film for you, a very small film on Memorial Day, and afterwards I would like to give you the opportunity to reflect on that and to say why this is such an important branch of your work.
I've lost my 14-year-old girl in a suicide bombing in Jerusalem 17 years ago. Ever since, I devote my life to break this wall of hatred and fear between Israelis and Palestinians.
All my family in Gaza, and I lost a lot of them also. So this day I remembered all of them and feel that I must make something to future.
We understand that there is no revenge for a lost loved one, and we understand that this is the only way together to show the humanity, to understand that this is the way to reconciliation.
This alternative ceremony provides us the opportunity to see the other side as a human being that have feelings, that suffers the same as us.
Provides hope. It provides another opportunity for living in this area.
This ceremony is expanding from year to year. We have more and more people who want to join this venture. And we need your help to make this happen. So please join us. We need your support.
We have to make a difference and make change.
Memorial Day. 14th of April? No. Memorial Day. Who can I give? Why is this such an important moment inside of Combatants for Peace? Who can I give the...
Yannick should answer because it's happening actually in Israel.
It's an Israeli.
Yes.
It's taking place on the Israeli Memorial Day when Ben-Gurion established the Cultural Week, National Week of Israel. He decided that the Memorial Day for the soldier and the victim of terrorist activities, later on they added to this day, will be one day before the Independence Day. So it's kind of very holy day before one of the most happiest secular holiday, if I can speak, at Independence Day. So in our culture, since my childhood, it's a very sad day. We remember the soldier, remember the victim of the conflict, and it's a holiday that all the people gathering together and cry together. And 10 years ago, a father that lost his son in a Lebanon war decided that he cannot relate anymore to the ceremony of the state ceremony or the regular ceremony, because he felt that what they do is they make us look at the victim and to think in a national way. He didn't feel at ease. He didn't feel that he can relate to the text and to the meanings of this ceremony. So he created this alternative ceremony of two nationalities, of Palestinians that lost their loved one in the conflict and of Israelis. After this first year's Combatants for Peace, our organization took these ceremonies, and we are doing it in the past 9 years on our expenses. Chen Alon, this famous Chen Alon, he also was the one that coordinated this ceremony. This year, Maya Katz is coordinating this ceremony, and we also collaborate with the Parent Circle, another Israeli-Palestinian organization of families that lost their loved one during the conflict. We remember the victims. This is what we call them, and we connect as an activist organization. We connect the memory of the victim of the conflict to the need to have a social change in order to prevent the future victims of this conflict. So we connect the sadness about the lost one to the need to take action and to change the reality together. The Palestinian people and the Israeli people together. We started 100, 200 people 10 years ago. The last memorial ceremony 1 year ago, exactly 1 year ago, more than 3,000 people arrived. The next Memorial Day is going to be in April, in the 21st of April this year. It cost us a lot of money, and this is actually our fundraising campaign to this ceremony that will be in Tel Aviv, open, free to the public. We have live streaming in the internet. Last year we got comments from Gaza and from other Arab countries, and we hope to multiply this ceremony and to have like a live streaming, maybe a webcast with screen in Bet Jala or in Ramallah.
Big happening.
Big happening. Key events.
And to say to the public at home, but also to the audience here, of course, these actions. Combatants for Peace is a voluntary organization. It's not that there are people living from the conflict or from the organization. So I would like to address myself to you and to say, if you feel like it, please donate money, because without money nothing happens. So if you feel like it, just go to the website of Combatants for Peace, and you will find the actions and the collections they make, especially to make this Memorial Day possible.
Thank you.
For the people at home and here, I want to say this is the last roundup where you can pose your questions. You told the story. Be courage, have courage. Go on the microphone or just type your message.
Hello, everyone. I wrote my question down on my phone so I won't get distracted. My question to you all is, what was the main thing for you to be able to let go of all the preset judgments you had about your so-called enemy? Because I can imagine you've been exposed to such type of judgments since birth. And to be able to transform this into something as positive as working together in Combatants for Peace.
كيف قدرتوا تغيروا هاي الآراء المسبقة والكراهية اللي كانت عندك على إيش أنت بتسميه العدو وتتحول لمحل إنك أنت تكون مقدم لأجل السلام. To whom you want to address this?
All of you.
So let's start with
طبعا أنا في قصة الشخصية حكيت أنه أنا في لحظة من أو في وقت من الزمن أنا كنت مقتنع في العنف يعني قناعة غير طبيعية.
During also telling my when I told my personal story, I said that in one period of my life I was so convinced that what I'm doing in a violent way it's the right thing.
لما صارت الأمور يعني هي من البداية كل عائلتي كانوا مساجين عند الاحتلال، فصارت لما الأمور تمتد حتى الجيل الصغير من العائلة.
Once I grew up, just to remind you that I did grow up in a family that most of its members was put in the Israeli jails, but once it started to affect the young and the new generation,
من اعتقال، من قتل، من كل شيء بيمارسوا الاحتلال.
Arresting them or sending them to jail or any other way that the occupation system use against us.
يعني أنا ما كنت أخاف حالي، بس لما صار الإشي يجي في عائلتي صار أنا عندي هون إنه أدور يعني صار أنا عندي تفكير إنه أنا كنت هسه لحالي بس هسه صرت أنا مثلا وأخوي فهذا إشي يعني مش إنه مش صح، فلازم إنه نلاقي بديل لوقفه.
So in the beginning when it was only me and I was thinking about what I should do and about my life, it wasn't hard for me to decide to take these actions, but once it started to affect my younger brother and the other brother and all the new generation of the family, then I know that I understood that it's not only me, we have future and we need to stop what is happening.
فأنا قاعد في السجن لسنوات طويلة يعني اللي قاعد في السجن في عنده زي ما بقولها ما في شيء يعني في بقدر يفكر لأنه قاعد لا ما فيش شيء يعمله.
So I was sitting in the jail for 5 years, so I had a lot of time just to think and rethink with myself about what is my important goals in life.
بعد خروجي من السجن لما لقيت في ناس انه تنمي الفكرة هاي فيي وتوصل لي الرسالة الصح اللي بيشتغلوا فيها المقاتلون، أنا اقتنعت فيها وبلشت من هون نقطة التحويل. فأنا في كثير مجموعات فلسطينية إسرائيلية بس لكن أنا برفض رفض قطع إني أشتغل معها.
And the other thing that did help me in doing what I'm doing today, it's the supporting group. That once I got out of the jail, I found people that they believe in what I believe and they support me and they're there with me. And that's why I joined Combatants for Peace and I'm working with them. And you should know that there are so many different groups working as Israeli Palestinians, but for me it's a problem to join other groups that they don't talk about the occupation and make direct actions.
وأنا الطريقة اللي ماشي فيها مش معناها إنه أنا تخليت عن قضيتي أو تنازلت عن أرضي، لا بالعكس أنا ما زلت بناضل ومستمر في النضال، لكن في طريقة غير عنفية. بدام في طريقة للنضال غير عنفية أنا يعني ماشي فيها.
I still have the same goals of ending with the occupation. I still have the same vision of the freedom of my nation, but now I am doing it in a non-violent way.
والنضال اللي عنفي بتوقع أثبت نتائجه على الأرض.
And the non-violent struggle, it showed its success through the history as well.
Thank you. I could not point on a moment that I start viewing the Palestinian as human. I think it's a gradual process, and when you join the movement, when you join the activity, something happens. Your heart is open, and your eyes are open to view and to meet the other side. We are doing activities in Theater of the Oppressed, as you know, Luke, that of humanizing the other. And we work in the polarized model, Palestinian and Israeli. And it's a process that we also use this technique from the theater that help our activists that already choose to be activists against the occupation with Palestinians, still to see the other side, for the Palestinian and the Israeli, for the Israeli, the Palestinian, as human. Rima?
Yeah, I looked for a place that I could be part of it and to feel 100 me. And I never looked at, let's say I never looked at any part of our nation as an enemy. But I knew that there is the enemy, which is soldiers, and not the Israeli, because I live in Israel. So for me, also joining Combatants for Peace, it was a little bit, okay, it's either their intelligence, special intelligence, either like their soldiers, and if they serve in the occupied territory or they don't. So I had my own questions, which I received answers through the years about it. Yeah, it's brief and short.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lisa, for raising all these questions. You have any other questions, Tamar?
I had a comment from Gen Alan, on the story of Yaniv, of your personal story, and also by explaining a bit more the theatrical moment of this. He's saying this was a very theatrical moment in the sense that you gained the insight from being those double roles. You were the actor for the people in the bus, and at the same time the frightened spectator. And that's where we learn a lot from our theatrical thinking, because it becomes like understanding a different way of understanding through your bodies, minds, and hearts, which I think it's a nice thing to admit, how the theater works in this
process,
in this whole process, and how through theater you work on this.
It's always a pleasure to hear interpretation of Gen Alon to my personal story.
Any other questions? Yes.
Look, until she comes to us, it's so important to say also that every time we hear a personal story, it's something new. It's never the same story.
Yeah, I heard from we've been going a few days together, and I was so surprised that you told me, Yaniv, that for the first time you had the occasion to listen to Iyad's personal story. So also this is a very special moment for them.
I would just say that we use this tool of personal story very often in house meeting, with students, with house meeting with young Israeli before their army service, becoming Israeli and Palestinians that have permit to enter Israel. We are meeting there, telling the personal story of transformation, how we became peace activists, how we lay down our weapon. And for us it's important to show that what's happened to us personally, we believe can happen to both societies.
Your question.
My question. What do you think the government can do to achieve the goals of your organization?
The whom?
The goals of your organization, of this organization.
The government.
Which government?
Which government?
The Palestinian one or the Israeli
Both.
one? Both governments.
Both, yes.
They should...
You forget?
Pardon?
Translation.
It's part of the process.
إنه حكوماتكم ممكن تعمل إشي لإنهاء هذا الوضع.
Now you can go.
They should, you know, take the vision of Combatants for Peace from our website and our 3 goals and adopt it as their agenda. Yeah, this is my best. It's already written.
So that's the next governmental plan for Netanyahu.
Yeah.
He just has to adopt it.
Yeah, sure.
What can your government do?
شو حكومتكم تقدر
احنا بالنسبه لنا الحكومه الفلسطينيه هاي استراتيجيه بتبناها سياده الرئيس محمود عباس ابو مازن. بالعكس السلطه بتبني الاستراتيجيه اللي هو المقاومه السلميه وبتدعم المقاومه السلميه.
The Palestinian Authority right now with Abu Mazen adopted the idea of the non-violent struggle, and it's part of the Palestinian Authority a new system of dealing with things. So they are supporting our vision in the Palestinian side.
وتم دعوة مجموعة مقاتلون من أجل السلام على مقاطعة رام الله عند سيادة الرئيس محمود عباس وراحوا زاروه قعدوا معه.
And we were invited, Israelis and Palestinians from Combatants for Peace, to sit with Abbas in Ramallah and to have a special meeting with him as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for the question.
You're welcome. Thank you. I'm gonna wrap it up. I'm gonna close it slowly by saying thank you to the public here to come on this Sunday. It's Sunday?
Yeah.
Sunday evening.
And Easter.
We are in some roller coaster at the moment. Thank you for coming, for joining, for asking your questions. Please stay with us. Afterwards, you can in a more intimate atmosphere ask further questions. For those on the internet, I would like to thank you on behalf of Combatants for Peace and on behalf of FORMAAT here in Rotterdam to be with us tonight and to raise also your questions. And last but not least, I want to thank you 3 for giving us this fantastic opportunity, for all the work you are doing, for the hope you bring from a conflict zone here in the Netherlands, because sometimes from a distance we watch the conflict and we think this is going to last forever, and I think you bring us hope, and we will do, as FORMAAT, we will do all our best to support the movement further. Shalom, salam, peace with you. Bye-bye, everybody on the internet. That was it. Can I have a round of applause for these people?